Two employees, same company, same job title, same year of hire. One of them asks for a raise every 12 months, like clockwork. She walks in, states her case, and walks out with more money. Almost every time. The other one works harder, stays later, takes on more projects, never asks for anything. He tells himself the work will speak for itself. 5 years later, the woman who asked is earning almost double what she started at. Same building, same manager, same market, but completely different outcomes. And here's the part that should bother you. The man is, by every objective measure, better at the job. So what happened? This isn't about being good at your job. It's about understanding that your paycheck was never a reward for your effort. It was the result of a negotiation you didn't know you were having, and in most cases losing. Nobody sits you down and tells you this. Schools don't teach it. Most workplaces are quietly counting on you never figuring it out. I'm going to show you the rules that determine who gets paid what. Not based on talent, not based on effort, but based on a set of mental shifts almost nobody makes consciously. Once you see these rules, you can't unsee them, and you'll understand exactly why the hardest worker in the room is so often the lowest paid. Most people treat their paycheck like a scoreboard, a number that reflects how good they are. It isn't. It's a contract two parties agree to at a specific moment in time under specific conditions. Here's what that means in practice. Someone hired at $55,000 5 years ago is often still anchored near that number today, even after promotions, even after taking on double the responsibility. Because every raise gets calculated as a percentage of the original agreement, not a fresh evaluation of current value. Meanwhile, someone hired last year for the exact same role in a tighter labor market walks in at $72,000. Same job, same building, $17,000 gap. Not because of skill, because of timing and negotiation. But here's what most people miss. That gap doesn't close on its own. It compounds. Every future raise is a percentage of an already behind number. 10 years in, the employee who under-negotiated on day one can be tens of thousands of dollars behind for the rest of their career for a decision made in a 5-minute conversation they didn't take seriously. The psychological trap here is simple. We assume fairness is built into the system. It isn't. The system responds to what you ask for, not what you deserve. Companies aren't cruel, they're rational, and rationally, the cheapest employee to keep is the one who never asks to be paid more. Staying at the same company for years feels responsible. It feels like the safe, mature choice. But internal raises average around 3% a year. Employees who switch companies average closer to 15 to 20% increases with each move. It gets worse. That gap doesn't just cost you once, it resets your baseline every single year you stay quiet. Two people who started at the same salary, one who switches jobs every 3 years and one who stays loyal for a decade, can end up with a 40% income gap by year 10. Same intelligence, same output, different willingness to be uncomfortable. Loyalty isn't wrong, but loyalty without leverage is just a discount you're giving away for free. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Being excellent at your job and being seen as excellent at your job are two completely different skill sets. The person who quietly does exceptional work but never talks about it is often invisible to the people making pay decisions. The person who does good but not even great work, but consistently makes sure the right people know about it, gets remembered when raises and promotions come around. Think about it from your manager's side. They're advocating for raises in a budget meeting with people who have never seen your work directly. They're relying on what they remember. If you haven't given them anything memorable to say, you don't exist in that conversation. I'm not done yet. Here's the hidden cost. Every project you complete without documenting the impact is value you generated that nobody can cite later. You did the work. You just didn't get credit for having done it. That's not modesty. That's an invisible tax on your income. In any negotiation, the first number spoken tends to shape everything that follows. This is called anchoring, and almost nobody outside of sales and negotiation training understands how powerful it is. If your employer names a number first, that number becomes the emotional center of the entire conversation. Even if it's far below your actual value, you end up negotiating up from their low number instead of down from your accurate one. Someone who researches their market value and states a confident, specific number, say $95,000 instead of around $90,000, because specific numbers read as research-backed rather than guessed, routinely ends up with a higher final offer than someone who waits to be told what they're worth. The psychological insight here matters. Most people avoid naming a number first because they're afraid of asking for too much. But the real risk isn't asking for too much. It's letting someone else anchor you too low and never realizing it happened. Nobody talks about this one because it doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a personality trait. Staying in a comfortable role with people you like, doing work you've mastered, feels like stability. But comfort has a price tag, and it's usually your ceiling. The most skill growth, the most title jumps, and the most significant pay increases in most careers happen during periods of discomfort, a new company, a stretch role, an industry switch. The employee who stays comfortable for a decade often has 10 years of experience that functions like 3 because the other 7 were repetition, not growth. Here's the quiet consequence. Employers don't pay for years worked. They pay for compounding capability. If your capability plateaued in year 3, your pay plateaus with it, even if you're still showing up in year 10. If you never bring up money, your employer assumes, reasonably, that you're fine with what you're making. This feels unfair because internally, you might be quietly resentful, quietly job searching in your head, quietly keeping score, but none of that is visible from the outside. Silence doesn't communicate frustration, it communicates agreement. Compare 2 people again. One raises the topic of compensation once a year, calmly, with data. The other waits, hoping to be noticed, and grows privately frustrated when the gesture never comes. From the company's perspective, only one of these employees has ever actually asked for anything. Guess which one gets considered when the budget allows for adjustments? The hidden cost isn't just the missed raise, it's the years of resentment building underneath a conversation that was never actually had out loud. Your manager doesn't set your worth. They set a budget, inside constraints they didn't choose based on data you probably haven't seen. This is why researching real market rates changes everything. Someone who knows their role, pays between $80,000 and $110,000 elsewhere, walks into a negotiation with a floor and a ceiling. Someone who doesn't know that number is negotiating blind, hoping the offer they receive happens to be fair. It gets worse if you don't check. Companies are on average not incentivized to volunteer that you're underpaid relative to the market. That information asymmetry benefits them, not you. The market rate is publicly discoverable. Most people simply never look. This is the one that quietly costs the most because it's invisible in the moment. Retirement contributions, social security calculations, future job offers that reference your salary history, all of it is built on the number you're earning right now. A gap of $10,000 a year isn't just $10,000. Compounded over a working career, factoring in retirement contributions and future raises calculated as percentages of an underpriced base, that gap can grow into 6 figures of lifetime lost income. The psychological trap is that this cost never announces itself. There's no single moment where you feel the loss. It just quietly compounds in the background of a life that otherwise looks completely normal. Okay, let's wrap this up by returning to those 2 employees. The woman who asked for a raise every year wasn't more talented. She understood that her salary was a conversation, not a verdict, and she showed up to have that conversation on purpose every single time. The man who worked harder believed, quietly and reasonably, that effort would eventually be recognized on its own. It rarely is. Recognition has to be requested, documented, and negotiated. It is almost never volunteered. Neither of them did anything dramatic. There was no single decision that separated them. There was just a pattern, repeated year after year, invisible in any single moment, but massive over time. You are not paid what you're worth. You are paid what you negotiate, what you make visible, and what you're willing to walk away from. If you truly understand and practice this, then you'll be closer to your goal of complete financial freedom. If you found this video helpful, then hit the like button and subscribe for more personal finance content every week. Thanks for watching, everyone.